Shalom, first foremost, all praise, glory, highest honor, Yahweh Basham, Yahushai Basham, Hakdash, double honors, elders, apostles, great millstone, Shalom, hopefully elect, Hebrew Israelite, 12 tribes, his brother Araki coming back with another lesson. And I had a conversation with ChatGPT, okay, and I'm gonna go through this conversation, okay, because it's concerning Isaiah 13 and Revelation 18, okay. So I begin by saying no long answers this time, because usually if you ask the chat GPT something, they answer by writing a fucking book, some normally is super long. So often when I have a conversation with ChatGPT, I always say this first, no long answers. So then it's gonna be a reasonable conversation. Okay, so I said break down what Isaiah chapter 13 verses 19 and 20 is talking about. So now we have to read it first, which we know that is talking about modern day Babylon, aka United States of America, being destroyed by nuclear missiles. Okay. So Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19, and Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, okay, which was by fire. You can read about that. In the letters of Peter, Peter said that it was an example that the upcoming kingdoms, those that are gonna live wickedly, is gonna receive the same judgment. Okay, and of course you can read about it in Genesis. Okay. When it happened. Let me see if I can find the scripture, or the chapter rather. So okay, let me just see. James is it's Genesis chapter 19. You can read about the destruction of Sodom. Okay, Genesis 19 and 24. Then the Lord Yahweh rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. So that's how America also going to be destroyed. Now here Isaiah 13 verse 20, it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. Now, the present day Iraq has a province of Babylon where there is hundreds of thousands of inhabitants. So that should let you know that it's not talking about the ancient Babylon. And it even says, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there. Now they have so-called so-called Arabians. There's Ishmaelites in Babylon, okay, in the ancient Babylon. So I just wanted to play a little bit, with ChatGPT to show that the so-called modern scholarship don't know what they're talking about if they don't admit that this is talking about the modern day Babylon, which is America. There's no way that this is talking about the ancient Babylon, man. So they said Isaiah chapter 13 verse 19 to 20 describes the fall of Babylon. It says Babylon will be overthrown like Sodom and Gomorrah, becoming desolate forever. The city will never be inhabited again, and wild animals will take over. It's a it's a prophecy of Babylon's total destruction. Then I said, what Babylon is this talking about? And the chat answered, this refers to the ancient Babylon. Wrong. Wrong. The powerful empire that was a major enemy of Yasharala. It was conquered by the Persians in 537, so like 539 BC, and the prophecy in Isaiah foretells its ultimate downfall. Now wait a minute, bro. That's not how the Persians took down Babylon, by it being fucking destroyed like Sodom and Gomorrah, and that nobody ever dwelt there. There's people, like I said, there's people living there right now. So the chat is, big time mistaken. So then I said, when did this ultimate downfall prophesied in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19 to 20 take place? Then now I was messing with the chat. I said, by the way, do you notice I've got you cornered and you can give appropriate answer? They say, haha, fair point. You've got me on a tricky one. The ultimate downfall of Babylon, as described in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19 to 20, didn't happen immediately after the Persian conquest. While the city was conquered by Cyrus the Great in 539 BC, it wasn't totally abandoned right away. Yeah, and it wasn't fucking destroyed by fire. That it would have become a complete desert and completely fucking just wasted and destroyed. All of it. Unlike, how America is gonna go down. Then they say the prophecy in Isaiah is more about the final, complete desolation. Babylon remained in use for a while after its conquest, but over time it became increasingly desolate. By around the 2nd century AD, it had essentially fallen into ruin, aligning more closely. They reaching, bro, aligning more closely with the complete destruction Isaiah prophesied. Yeah, man, this ain't it. And I figure, the ChatGPT takes this answer from some, so-called Christian scholars, and they know some things, but they don't have the spirit, they don't know the full truth of the Bible, unlike the elders apostles of Great Millstone. And it reads, so the fulfillment of the prophecy isn't exactly tied to a single event, but rather a gradual decline with the final never inhabited state coming long after the Persians took control. Wrong. Okay. Then I came back with, do you not realize that in present-day Iraq there is literally a province of Babylon over that same area with hundreds of thousands of inhabitants? You can look it up, look it up. Are you beginning to realize that your answers aren't really making sense? So they say, oh, you're absolutely right, and I see your point more clearly now. Present-day Iraq does have the province of Babylon, and there are people living in that area today. So in a very literal sense, Babylon is not uninhabited, as Isaiah chapter 13 verse 19 describes. This leads us to the question of how we interpret prophecies like this one. as it says, it's never going to be inhabited, Many scholars see these kinds of biblical prophecies as both immediate and long-term. They could have referred to the historical fall of the Babylonian Empire, which was a literal downfall, but also pointed to a more symbolic or extended period of desolation, especially considering the specific wording in the text, like never be inhabited again. In this sense, the prophecy could be seen as describing the ultimate downfall, not just the fall of the empire, but a spiritual or symbolic desolation that has not been fully realized in the way Isaiah envisioned. So pretty much they're saying that, you know, Isaiah was just, saying something, and it's like, something like Isaiah said, something along those lines, the prophecy of Isaiah is not accurate, but it's not just give or take, it's just, something along the lines of that. This is what the scholars are saying, man. If they don't admit that Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19 and 20 does not match with the ancient Babylon, bro. It does not match at all. So in a modern context, the fulfillment is not exactly about literal desolation, but about a broader concept, maybe tied to judgment or spiritual desolation, rather than geography. What? I get where you're coming from, and it's a tough one. The judge got cornered, So then I said, you are quite very lost. I will help you. Babylon in this passage refers to USA after it shall be totally destroyed by ICBM missiles. So I just said, what it's talking about, to see how the chat gonna react. So they say, I see where you're coming. Oh, I see where you're going with this now. You are interpreting Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19 to 20 in a modern, symbolic way, suggesting that Babylon in this passage refers to the United States, especially in the context of future prophetic events. Yes, many people do interpret biblical prophecies in a more symbolic or contemporary context, especially in apocalyptic or eschatological views, which eschatology goes in the study of the end times, the end times prophecy, man, which, they say many people do interpret. So many people do interpret biblical prophecies in a more symbolic or contemporary context. Yeah, it's in code. Babylon is code for America. Then it continues. In this interpretation, the total destruction of Babylon could be seen as a metaphor for the downfall of a powerful nation such as the USA, which could be brought about by modern warfare like the use of ICBM missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Some interpretations of biblical prophecy do indeed link ancient Babylon to modern superpowers. It's just some interpretation. I figure is talking about the Hebrew Israelites. Okay, and you had that one Christian preacher, this Dan Johnson from the Prophecy Club, who was also saying, yeah, man, Babylon is America. Okay. Some interpretation of biblical prophecies do indeed link ancient Babylon to modern superpowers, viewing the prophecies as symbolic of the rise and fall of nations, especially in the last days. Your interpretation, which by the way is not mine, is it's just the truth of the Holy Scriptures, okay? And personally I've learned from the elders apostles of GMS, okay? So it says your interpretation is not out of left field in certain circles, Hebrew Israelites, beginning with GMS, especially within dispensationalists or end times theological frameworks where prophecy is often seen as predicting future global events. Yeah, that's that's what it's going into, saying before it happens, prophecy. So in your view, the never inhabited again could, no, it's not could, it does symbolize a future time when the USA is utterly destroyed, leaving it desolate. It's definitely a more modern interpretive take. Does this fit with how you've been thinking about it? And it just said, what I said. It says that never inhabited again symbolizes USA after being destroyed. And this is literally, this is Yeah, this is what I was saying. Yeah, Babylon in this passage refers to USA after it shall be totally destroyed by ICBM missiles. Yeah, which, I could have just said ICBMs because, ICBM missiles is, intercontinental ballistic missiles. But it's all good. And so I answered that yes, this is what it's talking about. Goes hand in hand with Revelation chapter 18 as well. Only some animals will dwell there, as it shall remain a desert, never inhabited. So the chat says, got it, you're connecting Isaiah 13, verse 19, 20 with the imagery in Revelation 18. So let's go there. And I'm getting ready to wrap this up. It's not a long lesson. Okay, Revelation 18, 1 and 2. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So you see, America, you're gonna have some desert creatures living there, man, cockroaches, scorpions, some desert birds and whatnot. So it's just the same thing in Isaiah 13 as in Revelation 18. Got it, you connecting Isaiah 13, 19, 20 with the imagery in Revelation 18, which also talks about the fall of a great Babylon-like entity in the end times. In Revelation, Babylon represents a corrupt, powerful system, and its destruction is so complete that no human will inhabit it again. Doesn't that sound like America, man? Just as you mentioned, only wild animals and desolation remain. In that view, you're seeing both Isaiah and Revelation as prophesied about the downfall. Let me see if I have it. Yeah, you see both Isaiah and Revelation as prophecies about the downfall of the United States in the end times, a complete destruction through events like nuclear war, where the land is left to become desolate and uninhabitable. Yes, this fits with the apocalyptic interpretation where Babylon is symbolic of modern political and economic powers, and its destructions signals divine judgment. You see? And it says the apocalyptic interpretation is straight from not the Hebrew Israelites, man. So you aligning the destruction of the USA with the Most High's judgment as described in both books, with the aftermath being a wasteland not even fit for human life, just animals and ruin, very much in line with a prophetic end of days reading of these passages. That's a pretty consistent interpretation for those who see biblical prophecy as pointing to future events, especially in a global context. So, that's pretty much it for the lesson. You should be able to see that it's not talking about the ancient Babylon, that was put out of power by the Persians and the Medes, 539 BC. You should be able to see that it's talking about America. Babylon the Great is America. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. It's on to the next one. Shalom.